All right, all right. Well, I'm super happy to see you guys join us today. I'm going to start off a little bit by kind of explaining what backend engineering, because I feel like you guys joined us and you're super interested in how backend engineering works. And so, um, generally, we see a lot of websites like Google, Facebook, etc., and we wonder how things like this work, right? Like, for example, this is actually a project that's made by one of our Underdog devs, and I'm sure he's going to review our video in a little bit. And it's quite stunning. Basically, what this website does is you drop a
Hold on.
picture. Hmm?
Are
Sorry.
you trying to be sharing? Because I can't see anything if you
Oh,
are
you
trying.
can't see my screen, right? Yes. Let me share my screen here. Yes. Can you guys see my screen?
All right, cool. All right, yeah, yeah.
Perfect. Perfect. Yes. So this is a website of someone's one of our mentors, our mentees here. And basically, it's like a little mini project. Basically, what you do is you drop a book in here, and it's supposed to detect what the title of the book is and the value of the book, etc. And so, when we look at a website like this, we kind of wonder, like, hey, how does it work? How does everything like this function? And more importantly, how do we monetize something like this into a what we call SaaS model? So it's a software as a service. So every time you do something, the software is providing a service to you, as opposed to you downloading like a program. But I'll get into that in a little bit. So what you're looking at right here is a UI. Basically, it uses HTML and JS. I'm sure a lot of you guys know a little bit about that, CSS, to make it look nice. But what backend engineering is, it's the logic behind the website. When I upload an image on this website, what does it do? What does the computer think in order to process that request? So the first thing I'm going to do here on this random website is I'm going to right click, and I'm on Chrome right now. And I'm going to look and I'm going to click on something called inspect. And when I click on inspect, I can click under network here. And basically what this does is it records all of the requests that are being passed through the website. So every time I click on something, for example, you can see it hits a certain web point, and he hasn't implemented the about section. So that's not going to work. But I will go ahead and find a random book, such as Dr. Seuss, right? Seuss, green eggs and ham. And so let's download this picture right here of green eggs and ham. Just put it right here. And so now I'm going to go ahead and upload that same image I just got. I think it was this one. We'll see what happens. Yes. Ah, perfect. So it was able to identify this book is called Green Eggs and Ham, the author, the publisher, and the ISBN. So in that very, very brief instance, we're wondering, okay, exactly how did the website get the image and how was it able to process that and give us the information that we need back? And how this website interacts with its server is that it uses something called an API. And what an API is, it's basically very simple. It's you sending a web request, kind of like you going to google.com. It's basically pinging spinespotter.com, uploading the image and asking the server to reply back, okay, give me the information I need. I want to know about this book. So this is a brief overview, kind of like an example here. And if we look at the response back from the server here, see if I can find it here. We can see that it returned back an array, right? A JSON. And basically it says that, hey, the message is the image was processed successfully. Um, the ISBN of the book, so these are the ISBN numbers of the book, and you can see it right here. The URL of the book. So actually, if I go over here, it will show you all the places where the URL can be found. The image and summary of the book. So you can see the server responded back that the author is Dr. Seuss, its ISBN numbers, the image URLs, and as well as the price placeholders. Now, obviously, the server doesn't have this right. So the prices of the books are wrong. They're not all zero, but these are all things that can be fixed, right? So this is kind of like what backend engineering is we don't really care about the front end. We all backend engineering is creating these little backend requests where we're able to take in raw data from the user and process it in our server and be able to store it so that we could do cool things with it. Um, so I want you to think of it slightly differently too. It's not only for this one website. say for example, you access your email account, you access gmail.com, right? So the moment you log in and you give Google, say, your credentials, right? This is my username, this is my password, or this is my security token, etc. Google then uses that information and returns back to everything you might need, all your previous emails, the dates, the subjects, everything, right? So that's what the whole idea behind backend engineering is. And so there are lots of tools for um, kind of like achieving this. And people use JavaScript, such as in this one. A lot of people use C, so you'll see in lots of job applications, job requests, it's for .NET. And a really big growing one is under Java. It's called Spring Boot, and that's the one that I'm teaching today. It uses Java, and basically it takes in APIs, and it's able to do lots of very complex or simple, depending on how you want to make it. And it's able to take in these requests and throw it back to users. So I'll kind of give a little bit, I was gonna go ahead and show you using a sketchpad, how it works, but I feel like we've gotten a brief overview of, as like a live example of how this works. Helen and Greg, do you have any questions so far, or does that all kind of make sense?
I'm good so far.
You're good so far, it makes sense?
Yes.
All right, all right. So there's a few tools that I want you guys to first kind of get used to using. The first one is this one called Hopscotch. Now, it's an open source version of Postman. And Postman is usually the one that's being used in a lot of companies. The reason why I don't use Postman is because they started charging and limiting a lot of different features, and that's not something I'm looking for. So essentially, what Hopscotch does, it's the exact same thing as what Postman does, but it's kind of like the free open source version. And also another thing is an IDE. So a lot of people might use Eclipse, and that's totally fine, or Spring Tool Suite. Me personally, I use IntelliJ because it's so smart, it's very efficient. And once you get the hang of using it, IntelliJ allows you to have lots of powerful tools at your fingertips. The only problem with IntelliJ is that unless you're a student or a teacher, IntelliJ does cost money. So feel free to use VS Code or Spring Tool Suite or Eclipse and follow along if you want, and we can go from there. And Helen and Greg, if you do have these tools that have already been downloaded, feel free to go ahead and follow along. If not, then you can just kind of view and follow along later on. And if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me a DM, and I'd be more than happy to answer you guys. But let's start off with a sample project. So the first website I want you guys to go to is start.spring.io. Every single Spring Boot project starts at this site. Basically, it allows you to start with a very blank template. And so I'm going to go through exactly what each of these fields mean. Over here, we have the project type. We have Groovy, Kotlin, and Maven. And what Gradle is so let me go through each one of these fields. Gradle and Maven are basically dependency managers. Have you guys used Linux like Unix before, or not at all?
Yep.
Yeah? Okay. And Helen, how about you?
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Okay. So you guys know what apt-get is, or you guys know what yum is, right? And so the idea behind all of these is that instead of downloading every single dependency, we can give it essentially a one-line piece of code, and we could tell it, hey, I want this thing in my project. So Java has that same issue where, for example, you might want tons and tons of other people's code. And instead of downloading it manually and putting it inside your dependencies folder, with Maven or Gradle, we're able to just put in one line of code and tell Java essentially, hey, when you build and compile this project, I want you to also download the latest version of XYZ and also put it in the project. So then instead of having a super messy repository, anyone who downloads your project can instantly start it and download all the dependencies that are required. So in language, obviously, we can use Java, Kotlin, or Groovy. They're all cross-compatible. So I know I'm teaching it in Java, but if you guys know Kotlin, because I know a lot of you guys are also in the Android development channel and you guys do use Kotlin, feel free to use Kotlin as well. It works just as well. And actually Kotlin and Java are cross-compatible. They're compiled at the very end to the same binary format. So you can convert one to the other and vice versa. And Groovy, I don't see a lot of companies using this, to be honest, but it's kind of like, I feel like it's an older version of Java. Groovy is great for a pipeline called Jenkins, and I'll get into that later on. It's also super common, but for now, we'll stick to Java. And next thing we have is Spring Boot different versions. Usually you stick with the latest version that doesn't have a snapshot next to it. And what does snapshot mean? Snapshot just means that it's still kind of like in testing, it's in development. They're not 100% sure they've worked out all the kinks yet, but it's available for you to test out if you'd like. Usually speaking, I want to stick with the latest version that doesn't have it. The next thing we have is project metadata. And so
Quick
project
question.
metadata, yes, what's up?
What does the M1 mean on the one up there?
I am not completely sure. I've seen that on a couple projects before. I usually stick straight away from it. I'm sure you could use it, but I usually just use the one without quotations at the very end or without the ones in the quotes at the very end. But in a company, you'll be using something called, some people use Snake, some people use Sonar and, or not Sonar, White Source. There are all these companies that essentially scan your project for the latest stable version. And say, for example, you built your project on 3.18. Well, there might be lots of vulnerabilities in 3.18 that were discovered. And so it'll tell you to use the latest version. And I'll show you I'll show you how to upgrade it later on. But these are all little skills that we'll build step by step. The next step here is we have a group. Now, what is the group? The group essentially tells you, well, exactly what you think, what group you are. So COM stands for company. A lot of organizations use org, but you can do whatever you want. In this case, we'll stick with COM and say we have a company name, right? So in this case, our company will be Underdog Devs, right? So we can do com.underdog devs. And under artifacts and name, we'll name it whatever we want. So sample, we'll name these two both samples because these are sample projects. And for the description, we could put down demo project for Underdog Devs, right? And so this will be the package name. And I'll show you what the package name means later on. The last thing I want you guys to know about is that the Java version does matter. Depending on the different Java versions, there are different annotations that are being used. For example, in Java 8, lambdas were starting to be introduced, right? So if you are on Java 7, for example, this project might not compile for you. So before you pick which Java version, just make sure you have the right one installed and make sure that you have the JDK version of the correct Java installed. I had another mentee actually ask me earlier, hey, why isn't my Java project working? It's because there are two versions of Java. One is called JDK and one's called JRE. And JRE means Java Runtime Executable. So it means that it's only able to read projects that have already been built. So say, for example, I compile this project and I send it over to you. If you have JRE, you can go ahead and read it. Now, if you download JDK, JDK stands for Development Kit, Java Development Kit. So you can actually build projects using it, right? So because today we're building a project, we want to have at least Java 17 JDK. And this is the next part, which is really, really important here. You have to add dependencies. Spring and backend development can be very complex, and each company uses different tools, right? Some companies require that their backend connect to a database. Other companies require that they connect to, say, Google Cloud or Amazon Web Services, right? Some other ones need to make sure that they have security to go ahead and block people out, right? Or other companies may have requirements for, say, connecting to an SMTP server, so email servers, right? So over here, we'll add dependencies and tell Spring, hey, when you build this project, I want X, Y, Z in the project, so then we're able to go ahead and use them directly. So for our first starter project, we will go ahead and use Lombok, first of all. And so if you guys have reviewed the 4-hour video that I've given to you, or if you guys have used Java before, you'll understand that Java has a very, very annoying part about it is that everything is super boilerplate. So you'll have getters and setters and constructions for every single object, and it can get really, really tiresome very quickly. What Lombok seeks to do is that with a very simple annotations, you can instantly have the computer auto set your getters, your setters, and your annotations for you. No additional work required. It's super cool, and I'll show you how to use this in a little bit, but for now, add Lombok. Let's see what else is required. Spring Web is required because we'll be using our web interface, or in this case, Hopscotch, to go ahead and communicate with our APIs that we'll be creating, right? So that's another one. Let's see here. Sorry, one moment here. We're taking a look. Okay, this one's also another big one. We won't be using it today, but Spring Security. Spring Security allows you to go ahead and add annotations. So say, for example, you have lots of private endpoints and lots of public endpoints. And what do I mean by that? So for example, you might have lots of APIs, and one API is in charge of, for example, accepting requests from people to upload your image of the book that you're going to analyze. And maybe there's another API that is only for customer service that adds or deducts credits from people's accounts, right? And so, for example, you don't want people being able to access your credit changing API all willy-nilly, because then people can just add and deduct credits off of other people's accounts, right? So using Spring Security, we can go ahead and audit different APIs and make sure that different access levels and privileges are given to different people. But we won't go through that today. Today, we're just going to build a very, very simple web server. Same thing with Okta. Okta is a huge company that a lot of people use for security. Same idea. This one's also another big one is SQL. A lot of times these backend servers, they will contact a database to say, for example, you have a website with a large amount of users, kind of like what Google does, right? And so if your Spring project requires that you contact, that you're able to connect with a SQL database, then obviously you're going to add Spring JDBC and Spring Data JDBC, as well as Spring JPA. But other than that, those are the big ones that I can think of. Obviously, there was a whole bunch of different applications that you could add in. And so using this, we can go ahead and kind of get a brief overall of everything else that we might require. But yes, let me just take a look here. One last moment here. And I think we're all good. All right. So after we're done, we're going to go ahead and click the generate URL. So when we generate it, our sample project will be created right here. And so this is a Java project. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to import this project into my IDE here so we can start off. By the way, do you guys have any questions so far? I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. And if you guys have any questions, and I don't want you guys to get confused at one step and kind of get lost.
I'm good so far.
You're good so far? Perfect,
Yes.
perfect. Okay. So I'm going
Just
to go ahead.
You had Lombok, Spring Web, and Spring Web Services.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Yes. So let me open a project here. Sample, okay. All right. So now at the bottom, it's going to go ahead and load and resolve the Maven package. And I'll explain to you what Maven does here. All right. So earlier on, I was talking a little bit about Maven, and I'll show you again right here what I was talking about Maven here, right here, Maven, right? And so when you download a Maven project, what's going to happen is you're going to see something called pom.xml. So what is pom.xml? Pom.xml is basically the way you communicate with Maven and tell it what to do. And you can see right here, Maven is downloading all the packages that are required. So over here in Maven, you can see that it tells all the information that you need to know about the project. So over here, we can see that, hey, the parent project, which is the base project that we're working on, what is it called? It's called a Spring Frameroot.boot, right? So it's a Spring Boot project. And what version is it? 3.22. And we want to note the description, the name, the Java version that we're compiling with, as well as any dependencies that we might have, right? So all this information is all sent, and the moment you open this up on the computer, no one else needs to know, for example, hey, I want to download Spring Starter Web, or I want to download Spring Starter Web Services, or Lombok. All of this is already described in the project, and it will tell the user when they're downloading it, hey, Maven, make sure that when you open this project and when you build it, you grab all of these different dependencies and make it available to the user. And you'll see why this is so powerful later on. It's because later on, for example, if I want to add security, or if I want to use a third-party package, say AWS has a package that an SDK that allows you to directly communicate with their with one of their services, right? Then all I have to do is add like 4 lines of code, and at any time I can go ahead and tell Maven to go ahead and import that project in. And say, for example, version 3.22 now has security holes, right? People have realized that there is a severe issue, and the latest version is now 3.32, for example. I don't have to copy and paste all the files over and make changes myself. All I have to do is just update this 2 to a 3 and resave it. And the moment that it resaves and I upload this and update Maven, Maven will pull all the security updates that are required for the newer version and update you instantly. So Maven is a super powerful tool that allows you to do stuff like this. So kind of like a brief overview of Maven. All right. So let's get into the meat and bones and how to actually use Spring Boot. So inside Spring Boot, you'll see that with Java applications, generally speaking, we start off with a public static void main string args, right? And so that's the equivalent of any other projects, any other coding languages start function. It's the first line that gets run. And so usually speaking, when we start off with a Spring Boot project, what Spring does is it starts off this one line of code called Spring application.run. And what Spring application.run does is it starts off the entire Spring project. You don't have to do anything. This entire thing has already been built for you. And so, for example here, let's create an API that adds 2 numbers together. That's quite simple, right? So if I give your server 2 numbers, I want it to be able to add it up and return it back to me in JSON format. And so it's quite simple here. I will create a new package underneath called controller. And so you might be wondering, what does a controller class do? A controller class is the bare bones class that allows you to take in a request, right? So the moment a request is sent in to me, I want to know for a fact, this is what I should be looking for. This is what kind of data I'll be taking in. So under the controller class, under the controller package, I will create a new class called the calculator controller. And I will go ahead and annotate this with @controller. And so what does this annotation mean, right? So a lot of people get confused, right? So when you start off the Spring applications, it's a black box. What does it do? Well, basically, what Spring does is it looks for all these annotations, right? These @s. And a controller class basically tells Spring, hey, this is a very, very important class here. And you should look into it and read through all the necessary code in order to properly instantiate yourself, right? Properly start yourself. And I misspelled calculator here, so I'm going to rename it as calculator. Yeah. All right. So over here, I'm going to create a GET request. And so actually in APIs, I should clarify, there are quite a few different types of APIs. And so what does that mean? So say, for example, you're logging into Google, right? And you want to get information from Google. I want to get all the emails that are available in my current email folder. Well, that's a GET request. What's a POST request? A POST request is when you post something, is when you change something. Say, for example, that you want to go ahead and send an email. Well, when you're sending an email, you're not getting anything from the server. You're posting, you're telling the server, I want you to do this. So that's what POST does. Put means to, we won't get too much into these since put, patch, delete, head, and options are very, very rarely used. But those are also options that we can get into. For now, we'll just focus on get and post requests. So let's first create a get request, right? I want to get the result of adding two numbers together. So what I'll do here is I'll create an annotation called at get mapping. And in the get mapping, I'll do /add. So public int add numbers at parameter request param number 1. Sorry, int number 1 and at request param number 2. All right, and so return number 1 plus number 2. All right, so now we have a few more things. What does this mean, right? So the first thing we're telling Spring is get mapping. It means that, hey, this function that we have over here is a get endpoint, right? It is a get request, right? And so in our get request, we want to use the endpoint /add. And you'll see me use this later on, so this will make sense. Just keep this in mind. And inside our add request, we want to get two numbers to add together, right? So the first parameter that we're getting is number 1, right? It's a type integer, and we're requesting this as a parameter. The second thing we're adding is another integer. It's called number 2, and we're also using this as a request parameter. So now we're going to go ahead and start the application. So Spring Boot is going to go ahead and compile. It's going to go ahead and run. And it's going to have all of these outputs. And the moment you see it says started sample application or started, whatever you called it, right? We called it sample application. If you called it something different from sample, then it's going to say that. Then you know that this application is now up and running. And so over here, we're using localhost 8080. So what localhost means is that, hey, we're not actually running this on Google or on another server. Right now, we're running this locally, right? So we're using localhost 8080. If I do /add, and inside our parameters, as we specified, we have number 1, right? And we have number 2. And we add values 1 and 2, and we send it. Oh, we have a 500 internal server error, which means that I coded something wrong. Something's not correct. And so we can take a look at this. Unknown return type integer here. Let's see what I did wrong. I don't think it takes in primitives, that's why. This is embarrassing. We got to figure out exactly what's going on here. Let's see here. With root cause. I don't know why it's not able to figure out what integer is. That should be very basic. That's fine. What we're going to do here is I'm going to use a different project just to figure this out. But if I open up a new project here, and I'm going to use the project that I already know. Or actually, let's figure this out together because you guys and we all have the same code. If I use a different project, then you guys aren't going to be able to figure out exactly what I did wrong. But let's see exactly why.
You go back to your the hopscotch.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopscotch is not doing anything wrong because Hopscotch is successfully sending this project, this request over, and we're clearly getting a response back from the backend server. You can see in our timestamp, in our status code, and error and our path, it's correct. It's able to get this back. But what I don't understand is it doesn't know the return type value. Let's do something else a little different here. See if we can return a string. So instead, I'm going to create one more endpoint here and let's see if it works. Let's create a hello world endpoint. So in our hello world endpoint here, all we're going to be doing is returning back a simple string, and we're going to be returning back, say hello. Hello world. And let's see if this works. So let me recompile this. Same idea here. We're going to go ahead and have this endpoint at hello world, and we're going to see if it returns back the string hello world. That is extraordinarily strange. Huh. I don't know why it's not able to find it. I get mapping here. Start this again. I guess I should have tested this before we started this project, but let me restart Spring Initializer and let's see what happens. Let me terminate this project here. I'm gonna toss this. Spring Initializer, Lombok, Spring Web. I might have forgotten to add REST repositories. I think that's what it is. All right, let's see if that's the issue. Hopefully it is. My bad, guys. Sorry about that. Let's see if this fixes the problem. Desktop, and where's sample project? Where is it? Sample, okay. Okay, yeah, so let me go ahead and bring back exactly what we had here. Where's the sample project? I can't open it yet, so. Let me bring it over to the downloads folder here. And source main Java com underdog dev sample. It's fine. We'll just create it from scratch. So we'll create a controller class. I think this may have been the previous version instead of the one that we just downloaded here. Let's take a look in the problem XML and see if the dependencies are there. Start a web services. I think this may have been the old project, but we'll see what happens. Just a minute. Yeah, this is the old project. Sorry about that, guys. We have some technical difficulties. But yes.
You're all good. It happens to the best of us.
No, next time, honestly, this is my first time tutoring, so I should have done my due diligence and figured this out before we started, just to avoid any hiccups. So in the future, I think I'll do that like half an hour before. I'll create a sample project just to make sure everything works well. And I appreciate all of you guys for being with me.
So did you pass them in as like in the request body?
No, so in this case, we're not using a body, right? In this case, we are just passing it in as parameters, number one and number two.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, yeah. So parameters are different from body, and we'll get into body later on. But here's, instead of in our desktop, we put in our documents. This project, new window. Yes. Sorry. I'll just copy and paste the exact same thing in this new project and we'll see what happens. Um, all right, cross your fingers here. Not found. Man, this is super frustrating. Let's see here. Yes, it is currently up and running. Why is that 404 not finding? That is interesting. What I'm thinking is that I'm missing some sort of annotation here, or I'm missing some sort of dependency here. So let's take a look at what I'm missing here. Spring Web includes applications for RESTful MVC, uses Tomcat Apache. It's fine. I have actually a third option to go ahead and save myself here. I can go ahead and open up one of the projects that I know works, and we can go from there. Moment here. Go back. Yeah. File open here. Documents Git Backend DB. Okay. So this is a sample project that I actually have. It's a personal project that I have. And let me take a look at the pom.xml and see what I'm missing. And maybe if I copy and paste everything there, then we can figure it out here. One moment. Oh, I think I know what it is. So over here in my test project, in my POM, see if we can figure this out. Starter mail, starter security. Copy and paste the dev tools here. I already have Spring Starter Web. Sorry about that. Let me just double check one last thing here. Actuator, we don't need starter mail, starter security, dev tools, JDBC, JPA. Actually, those are all databases, Spring Starter REST. Yes, that might be the missing one as well. And JDBC web connector, okay. And just to double check here, I will go ahead and open up a default controller class here. Main resources, controllers, default control at REST controller get mapping. Yes.
Oh,
Perfect.
you missing response body?
No, no response body is required. Not for get endpoints. Response body. Where'd you see response body, by the way?
I just looked at I forget where the hell did I see that? Oh, I was just looking up Spring request params because I was looking at one of my Spring project.
Oh, you were? Okay, gotcha.
So I
Um,
just added at response body to the controller and it did return an integer.
okay. So yeah, that might be the issue. Thank you so much for the help, by the way. Appreciate it.
No idea what response body does, but I know it works.
No, a response body basically tells the controller to go ahead and respond in JSON format in the body, but it should not be required. You can see over here, for example, in one of my sample projects, I have I don't
Oh,
have response body anywhere
so
whatsoever.
I think if you go into REST controller, it would probably be like a transitive dependency of that.
Right. That might be the case here. I'm thinking so too, but we'll see. Thank you so much for jumping in, by the way. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see if we can get Hello World started here. Huh. You want to share what you got so far, by the way? Greg?
Yeah. Can you enable sharing?
Yes, I can do that. One moment here. Let me see how I can do that. One moment here. Security and okay, yeah, go for it.
Cool. You've seen All right, cool. You see my IntelliJ?
Yep, yep.
All right,
And the
cool.
response body's at the second at the ninth line, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Just stop and then run. All right, so I'm started. Just so I don't have to switch back and forth. Let me just. Oh. You see the bottom screen, right? The terminal. It switched to that.
Yes.
All right, cool.
Ah, there we go.
All right, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so let me give a little bit of an update of what he just did. Curl is the same exact thing as what uh, Hopscotch does. Basically, it's just a text version. Anyone's computer can use curl, and essentially it tells your computer to go ahead and ping a certain endpoint. Could you do me a giant favor? Could you go on Google Chrome or something and go to that same localhost 8080/add question mark?
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So I just did the curl just so I wouldn't have to switch back and forth. But yeah, let me.
Yes.
Oh my God. I hid. All right, there it is. Okay. Yeah, add, right? Yeah.
Yes. Right. So same idea. Basically, I'm going to go down. I'm going to go through this really quick. You can see in the same response body, this is exactly what happened. Localhost 8080 refers to you pinging your own computer. The add column refers to basically what endpoint you're hitting, right? So in our path, we put in /add. Inside the afterwards, we put a question mark. Question mark means that anything after that is a parameter. It's not stored by the computer. And we have number 1 = 1 and number 2 = 2. And so that's the gist of it. It's very interesting that you got your thing to work and I couldn't. Could you also do me a giant favor? Could you share this project with me? Just upload the zip and share with me. That way I can get a move on instead of getting stuck on this. This is strange that I wasn't able to get this working, but yeah.
Did it still not go for you with the
No. At controller and at response body.
weird?
It is rather strange.
Yeah. Let me yeah, I can zip that up and send it to you.
Perfect. Thanks.
Where did I save this?
No static resource. Hello world.
God, I completely forget where I actually saved this whole project. And there we go.
Perfect. By the way, we have another guy who wants to join us real quick, so I'll go ahead and shoot him the link. It's
Cool.
good too, since we're trying to figure things out. So let me know. Let me know. Is it on Slack or?
I'm just zipping up. I had no idea where I saved it. I just
Okay,
spent like
okay. No
a
worries,
minute
no worries.
actually
Take your time.
where let's see.
I'm honestly scratching my head because this should have worked. I don't know what's going on. So yeah. Oh, I guess I could do one more thing here and explicitly define the port number, but I don't think that's going to be an issue. Resources. Server port 8081.
Slacked it to you.
Perfect, perfect. Thanks. Appreciate it. Ah, very cool. Oh, you did it in a tar.gz. I don't think Windows supports that. Let me see if I can
Oh no.
open it with 7-zip extract here. Just extract here. Yeah, yeah, we don't support tar.gz. Could you send it over in a zip format?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate it.
I don't think I've ever used zip on a Mac. Let me see. um,
Ah, I got it. We can use 7-zip
Oh.
to unzip it, so we're all good. I will do it to my document. Shoot. Is this my documents folder or something? There we go. Okay. So same thing here. I'm gonna go ahead and open up open this up here in my documents folder. And there is a sample. Open this up, this window.
You're not sharing if you believe you're sharing.
Oh, okay, okay. Yes, my bad. Share my screen. Okay, I appreciate it, Greg. Thank you so much for sending over your file. Let's see what you got. Okay. Your plugins. Okay. Take a look at your configurations. No JDK Spotify. Okay, so we'll use JetBrains. Okay. Sorry about that. When I download someone else's project, I basically, Spring can be kind of dumb and it doesn't really know exactly what this project is. Essentially, I have to tell Spring, hey, in this project, this is the main item here, controller, calculator
Oh
controller.
yeah, I just packaged everything. I don't know if it brings over config, but I was probably on Java 19, I think. If it like
Java 19? Oh, okay, that's why, because it was
it
trying to run
brings
it
all
on
that over, yeah.
Java 18, yeah. So if I edit the configurations here and I do Java JDK 19, and man, it really does not like your thing.
Yeah. I think I might have had some configurations for my old job also, which were just
Oh yeah, yeah. See, it's not able to read it. Hmm. That's a bit strange. But anyhow, I think next time we can get into the nitty-gritty details about it. I think that might be better. So I can use this as a learning experience and figure out exactly what went wrong here, and we can kind of cut out the middleman. But this is a general kind of idea behind how to use backend engineering, the idea behind it, and what it does. Basically, you're just getting requests from a server, processing it on the backend, and then returning it back to the user so that you can manipulate data and allow you to go ahead and do whatever you want. So that's kind of like the idea behind it. Does that kind of make sense to you guys so far? Apologies if I wasn't able to get Spring working today. I'll for sure figure it out exactly what's wrong with it, and we can get this working tomorrow, or I think next Friday or whatever, and we can go from there.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Sorry about the disappointment, guys. I appreciate you guys for holding on, but I think Greg did a great job. He was able to kind of demonstrate exactly an ideal behind how it works. But yeah, thank you for hopping on, guys. I appreciate it.
Greg,
awesome.
can you share your file with me also? Are you on Mac? Sorry, I have a puppy. Are you on your Mac?
Yes, I am.
Could you share the file with me too, please?
Yeah, I'll actually throw it in the backend dash dev channel.
Generally speaking, the Spring initializer should always work. There shouldn't be a reason why it doesn't. And to be totally honest with you, I don't know why it doesn't work this time. But once I figure it out, I will actually post a solution in the channel and we'll go from there.
Yeah, cool.
Okay.
Cool. Sounds good. Thank you so much, guys. I'm going to stop the recording, but in the meantime, I know Mo, you joined a little bit later. So I can go ahead and kind of give a brief explanation of what's going on, and just so you can kind of get up to date without watching the entire video again. How's that sound?
Yeah.
Sounds good. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. We'll see you next time.
Quick question.
Yes.
Are you gonna share this video with us? How are you gonna share it with us?
Yeah. I'm probably just going to post it on YouTube and private it, and then afterwards put the link in our channel so anyone who doesn't want to watch it can.
Okay.